Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into a serious crisis gripping Iran, the severe shortages of water and
A
electricity.
critical situation, definitely.
Yeah, and our mission here is to cut through the noise, really look at the source material you've provided, and try to unearth the actual reasons behind it all. Is it just, natural scarcity?
Yeah.
Or is there something much more complex going on, maybe rooted in human decisions?
That's the key question.
We'll explore how this is hitting the daily lives of millions and what insights the sources offer for maybe potential solutions. You hear a lot about droughts, climate change.
And those are factors for sure.
Absolutely. But we're going to show you where the picture gets, well, much, much bigger.
Indeed, the sources we looked at indicate the current water shortage in Iran is a truly serious crisis. It seems to stem from a combination of things: natural, human, and significantly managerial factors.
Okay, so let's break that down, naturally speaking.
Well, Iran's location, geographically, is in an arid and semi-arid region. So inherently, you've got low rainfall, high evaporation rates. That's the baseline.
Right, the natural starting point.
Yeah.
And climate change. How does that fit in, according to the sources?
Climate change is definitely a big amplifier here. Recent shifts have really intensified those natural conditions. We're talking reduced rainfall, higher temperatures, different rainfall patterns.
More severe droughts.
Exactly, more prolonged and severe droughts. And another point the sources make is faster snowmelt and more evaporation from lakes and surfaces. It all just compounds the problem.
Okay, so climate change makes a tough situation tougher.
Yeah.
But here's something the sources highlight that really caught my eye. Iran has this incredibly long history, thousands of years. And
Yeah.
apparently it's never faced a water crisis this bad until recent years. That really points the finger towards human and managerial failures, doesn't it?
It strongly suggests that, yes, the historical context is crucial. Iran has sustained large populations for millennia despite its geography. The fact that the crisis is so severe now, it points directly to systemic issues, things that go way beyond just the natural environment.
So what do the sources identify as the core of these human and managerial problems? They seem to zoom in on agriculture.
Yes, the agricultural sector is consuming over 90% of the country's water.
90%. That's huge. But here's the kicker the sources mention.
Yeah.
That massive water use only generates about 7% economic return. That
Yeah.
inefficiency is just alarming.
It really is, and the sources dig into why. The main method is traditional flood irrigation.
Slight irrigation.
Yeah, basically just releasing water into fields. It leads to massive waste, less than ideal yields. It's a technique that's been considered obsolete in many parts of the world for like 70 years or more.
70 years. So why are they still using it?
Well, the sources point to a lack of support. Farmers apparently lack training, industrial ag support, government help. So they're kind of stuck with these older water wasting methods.
So it's not just the volume, it's how the water's used. And okay, agriculture is the big one, but population growth, cities getting bigger, industry, that's pushed up demand elsewhere too, right?
Definitely. Those factors add to the strain. But what the sources really hammer home as exacerbating the problem is what they term weak water resource management.
Weak water resource management. And what does that actually mean on the ground? What kinds of things are happening?
The sources detail several critical issues. First, thousands of illegal, unauthorized wells have been dug.
People just digging wells wherever.
Pretty much. And that's led to a severe drop in groundwater levels, drying up entire plains. And this over-extraction causes land subsidence.
Subsidence. That's when the ground sinks.
Exactly. The land literally compacts and sinks because the water supporting it underground is gone. This is apparently a huge problem in central provinces, like around Tehran and Isfahan. And the geologists quoted in the sources call this dead land.
Dead land. That
Yeah.
sounds permanent.
They say it could take over 500 years to recover naturally, if it ever does. It has huge implications for farming, for where people can live.
Wow. Okay, so illegal wells, subsidence. What else falls under weak management?
Excessive dam construction is another big one. Numerous dams built, often inefficiently, without proper environmental checks, ignoring the ecological limits of the region.
And that affects rivers, presumably.
Drastically reduces river flows, yes. And finally, the sources mention improper water pricing. Water is apparently very cheap in Iran.
So there's no real incentive to save it.
Precisely. It discourages conservation efforts across the board.
Okay, so with all this mismanagement piling up, what are the immediate, tangible consequences people are facing? What do the sources describe?
They're pretty dire. Think about major lakes and wetlands like Lake Urmia, Hamon, Places that were once thriving ecosystems.
Yeah.
They're drying up, turning into these vast salt-crusted areas. This isn't just an environmental tragedy. It creates dangerous salt storms.
Gulf storms.
Yes, and alarmingly, the sources cite research suggesting these storms can cause multiple types of cancer. But apparently, this information has been suppressed by the regime.
Suppressed, that raises serious questions about public health and transparency.
Absolutely. And beyond the environmental side, the water scarcity is fueling conflict. Local fights over resources, people forced to leave villages for cities, growing social unrest. It's tearing at the social fabric.
And as if that weren't enough, the sources bring up something else, this concept of a water mafia.
Yeah, it's quite an accusation. The sources allege there's a powerful group, a water mafia, that's actually exporting Iranian water to neighboring Gulf countries. Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, the UAE at high prices.
Wait, exporting water while there's a crisis at home?
That's what the sources claim, directly contributing to the internal shortage by selling it abroad.
That puts things in a different light. How does Iran compare to its neighbors then? The sources mention Iraq.
Right, the comparison with Iraq is interesting. Similar climate, also arid. But Iraq apparently doesn't face the same severity of water problems. And the source attributes this mainly to the absence of such a water mafia there. It even suggests that a popular government in Iraq could potentially get agricultural revenues close to its oil revenues just by managing water properly.
That's really telling. So a key difference is this alleged mafia and the management. What about technology, like water recycling? How does Iran stack up globally?
The recycling figures are where the contrast becomes incredibly stark. Take Israel, the source says it recycles about 90% of its wastewater, mainly for agriculture. It helps them be world leaders in things like citrus fruit.
90%.
Saudi Arabia, over 80%, also for agriculture. Singapore has its new water program, advanced recycling, making water usable for industry, even supplementing drinking water.
Those are impressive numbers. And Iran?
Iran recycles less than 5% of its wastewater.
Less than 5%.
Yes, it's shocking, especially when you consider, as the sources note, Iran is supposedly the 5th richest country globally in natural resources: gas, oil, metals.
So richer than many countries that recycle far more.
Exactly. Many poorer African nations apparently have better wastewater recycling rates than Iran.
That's just incredibly inefficient. And beyond recycling, the sources also talk about the basic infrastructure, the pipes and things.
Yes, another huge issue. Over 30% of Iran's fresh water is apparently lost just through old, leaky, dilapidated pipes and supply networks.
50% lost before it even reaches anyone.
Yeah, the sources say some of this infrastructure is 50 years past its useful life. The regime apparently calls this non-revenue water.
Non-revenue water. A nice way of saying lost water.
Pretty much. Lost through leaks, maybe illegal taps. But it highlights a priority issue. The regime tends to blame the public for high consumption.
But wait, how much water does the public actually use for drinking?
That's the point the sources make. Drinking water is less than 6% of total use. Some experts quoted put it as low as 4%. Industry is maybe another 4%.
So the vast majority, that 90%, really is agriculture.
The highly inefficient agriculture we already talked about.
Yeah, and the money that should be fixing those leaky pipes, where is it going instead, according to the sources?
Well, the sources allege it's being funneled into things like the nuclear program, rockets, supporting proxy groups abroad like Hezbollah.
So a fundamental mismatch between national needs and regime spending.
That's the picture the sources paint. And it connects to even deeper issues. They mention unplanned population growth, for instance.
How so?
Under Khamenei, the regime apparently encouraged huge families, up to 14 children sometimes, for mobilization purposes. But critically, they failed to build the infrastructure needed to support that boom: water, electricity, housing, healthcare.
So the population grew, but the support systems didn't keep pace.
Right. And the sources contrast this with other countries that managed population growth without such infrastructure collapses. This lack of planning then feeds into migration.
From rural areas to cities.
Exactly. Farmlands dry up, rivers disappear, so people are forced into cities, often becoming cheap labor. But cities like Tehran, which have seen populations triple or quadruple,
They're running on old infrastructure.
still operating on systems built for much smaller populations decades ago. The source uses terms like laziness, irresponsibility, corruption, and inefficiency to describe this systemic failure.
Sounds like a cascade of problems. And then natural disasters, like floods, must hit incredibly hard.
Yeah, the sources contrast Iran's situation sharply with how some developed nations handle floods. In Germany or Sweden, Floods are almost seen as opportunities.
Opportunities, how?
Germany uses special materials, underground systems to collect floodwater for later use. Sweden has these amazing 75-year plans involving forests, engineered landscapes to guide floodwater safely into reservoirs.
Proactive management. And in Iran.
In Iran, floods often lead to tragedy. The source gives the example of Shiraz, where building in traditional flood paths made things much worse, causing deaths.
And the source
Directly blames a corrupt mafia government that allegedly profits from allowing illegal construction in dangerous areas.
It's a grim picture. The source even makes a historical comparison.
Yeah, saying Iran survived invasions by Alexander, Genghis Khan, Timur, but its infrastructure was never damaged as badly as it is under the current regime. It's a powerful claim.
And what happens to people who try to warn about this? Environmental activists.
According to the sources, those who warned against destructive dam projects that dried up ancient rivers, were often imprisoned, some even executed.
And those dams were profitable for some groups.
The sources point specifically to the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps. They allegedly undertook many of these projects, generating billions in profit through corruption, while the country suffered the environmental consequences.
And when the public complains about shortages, the regime's response is
Blame shifting, according to the sources, accusing the public of using too much water or inventing jargon like water pressure adjustment or that non-revenue water term to mask the real failures.
This sounds very similar to how the electricity crisis is handled, too.
Exactly. The sources say the electricity crisis, while distinct, shares the same root causes: mismanagement, the influence of this alleged mafia, and the regime prioritizing its own survival over the people's needs.
Despite potential solutions, like solar.
Right. Iran gets something like 265 sunny days a year. Huge solar potential, enough to power the country, maybe even export electricity.
Yeah.
But the investment isn't happening.
Because the money goes elsewhere.
That's the argument. To the proxies, the military programs, and there's a chilling quote the sources mentioned, attributed to a regime official.
What's that?
Something along the lines of, if they were forced to leave power, they would leave behind a burned land.
A burned land. That speaks volumes about priorities.
It helps explain, according to the sources, why money doesn't go to essential services, or even basic civil defense like bomb shelters, unlike, say, Sweden, which has robust shelters despite 200 years of peace.
So, facing all this internal pressure, what are the regime's tactics now, according to the sources?
One tactic highlighted is trying to incite conflict between cities or regions over water, propagating ideas like water wars, claiming some cities are using more than their fair share.
Trying to divide people.
The source calls it a desperate dream of the regime's internal conflict to distract from its own failures.
Have they tried this before?
Yes. Apparently attempts were made to stir conflict between farmers in Isfahan and another province during water protests.
But it failed.
Why did it fail?
Because the people, according to the source, recognize the regime itself as the real enemy, not each other.
So why try this divisive tactic now? What's the context? The sources suggest a regime is struggling externally. It's finding it harder to create crises abroad. Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. Plus, there's international pressure mounting, like the potential reactivation of UN sanctions via the trigger mechanism.
So, cornered internationally, they turn inwards.
It appears that way. Unable to project threats outward, they resort to trying to create divisions at home.
But you mentioned the people see through it. The sources quote a chant.
Yeah. Apparently a common chant is, "Our enemy is right here, they lie, it's America." It suggests a widespread awareness that the regime, not some external force or fellow citizens, is the source of their problems.
Which makes those divisive tactics less likely to work. So given all this, what do the sources present as the actual solution, the path forward?
The main source we're discussing, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI, is very clear. They attribute the crises directly to the regime's mismanagement, corruption, and plundering, not just natural causes.
And their solution follows from that diagnosis.
Yes. Their slogan sums it up: water, bread, electricity, freedom, and overthrow. They argue that removing the regime is a fundamental prerequisite to solving these deep-seated problems.
Is there a broader plan mentioned?
They reference Maryam Rajavi's 10-point plan for a future Iran democratic, pluralistic, which explicitly includes rebuilding vital infrastructure like water and electricity systems after a regime change.
And this source dismisses other potential opposition groups.
It argues that other contenders, mentioning the Shah's son specifically, lack concrete plans and risk returning Iran to another form of dictatorship.
So the overall assessment is that the regime is facing multiple crises it can't solve.
That's the picture. Caught in interwoven crises, seeing internal rifts appear, facing massive public discontent shown in recent uprisings across over 150 cities.
And its main responses.
Suppression. The source says its only remaining strategy is widespread arrests, executions, cracking down hard, or trying to incite that internal strife we talked about.
So amidst that suppression, where does the source see hope?
It points squarely to the organized resistance movement, mentioning specifically groups called resistance units. It describes this movement as a rare jewel
Why that term?
because of its long history, 60 years fighting dictatorships, immense sacrifices cited, like 120,000 lives lost. The source presents this organized resistance as the only viable way to achieve a free, democratic, and prosperous Iran, avoiding the pitfalls of the past.
And they mention the IRGC again.
Yes, the call for dissolving the IRGC is highlighted. The argument is that this would immediately free up vast resources that could then be used for national reconstruction, including fixing the water and electricity problems.
So wrapping this up, we've seen how Iran's water and electricity crisis goes far beyond just nature. It appears deeply rooted in systemic mismanagement, corruption, and what the sources describe as fundamentally misplaced priorities by the regime.
Absolutely. It's framed not just as a political issue, but as a matter of death and life for the Iranian people and their environment.
It really makes you think, how can a nation's essential resources, things that belong to the people, be diverted and squandered so severely? And what does it take for people to overcome that kind of crisis when the very system meant to serve them is identified as the main obstacle?
That's the profound question at the heart of it.
It's definitely worth keeping an eye on global efforts regarding accountability and, of course, the ongoing struggle of the Iranian people for a different future.
You're a masterpiece, a light for all the world to see.